start from the beginning. So before I got tinnitus, which I woke up with 2.5 years ago, I'd say, one morning, it was just there, ringing, both ears. I was 29 years old at the time when that happened, and didn't think too much of it. I was quite an outgoing, sociable young lady, and I still am, but I guess I just used to spend a lot of time in bars and going to watch rock bands. I was one of those that would just stand next to a speaker and wouldn't think much of it. In my car, I would have my music blaring. And that's the thing, when you listen to rock music, you can't listen to it quietly. It's not an option. You have to listen to it loud, of course. So that's kind of the thing I would be doing, and I was out a couple of times a week, especially during my early 20s. I would go out maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and I don't think that's above average for a 20-year-old. I think that's pretty normal. I would like to dance, I suppose, so I'd go to clubs now and again, and never even heard of tinnitus, never knew what it was, never thought about protecting myself, my ears, when I was out and enjoying myself. And so I just carried on for years and years, just enjoying myself and not thinking twice about what could happen. And then, as I said, then this one day I woke up and there was ringing in my ears. To be honest, to start with, I didn't really think much of it, because I'd had it before. Like, if you have a night out, or you go in to a gig or anything like that, and the next day your ears are ringing, and I've had that before, and then it goes away. And so it wasn't until I'd been hearing it for 2 weeks, I think, before I went to see the doctor, because it was starting to get really annoying, and I thought, I need to get rid of this. So I went to see the doctor. They checked for colds, viruses, blockage of the ears, to see if there was any other cause of it. And it wasn't until I mentioned that I have been struggling with my hearing for quite some time, probably since I was a teenager. I've noticed that I was struggling with hearing. I'd have to be in the same room as somebody, or have to look at them if I was talking to them. I never really got my ears checked, because the main reason being is that I didn't want to wear hearing aids. So I just thought, there's no point. If I need hearing aids, I'm not going to wear them, because they're not cool, they're not very rock chick, and I could cope without that extra help. I learned to read people and figure out different ways of communicating, I suppose, without them really noticing that I was struggling to hear them. So then when I had this tinnitus, there was like an extra difficult thing for me to deal with. I had to not only try and hear people, but I couldn't hear them. I could not hear what people were saying over this ringing noise. And the doctor was fantastic, sent me straight to the audiology clinic, and they did hearing tests and asked me a lot of questions, as you'd expect, and they came back and said, yes, you have hearing loss, it's quite bad, you have to have hearing aids in both ears. And it actually turned out to be the exact same hearing issues that my dad has. So it's hereditary hearing loss that I managed to get from him. So yeah, thanks for that, Dad. But he also gave me long eyelashes, so I totally forgive him. And so yeah, so I had these hearing aids. And to be honest, when I think back, there wasn't really much talk about tinnitus. They kind of shrugged it off a little bit, or didn't give me much advice about what I should do, or even warn me of how my life was going to suffer. So I had these hearing aids fitted a couple of weeks later, and I mentioned the tinnitus again when they were being programmed for my hearing. So they were fantastic there, and they actually put a program in for me with a white noise, so that would hopefully just cancel out or at least lower the volume of the tinnitus. So all sounded great to me. I was really excited to try my hearing aids because it was going to combat both of my issues. And what I didn't expect was how hard I found it to adapt to wearing hearing aids, to the point where I just didn't really wear them that often. I felt like they were uncomfortable. I felt like the noise that I had then in my ears was so overwhelming that I couldn't cope in situations. I could hear every little last noise, which was just as loud as people talking. So it took a long time for me to get used to wearing those, and I was angry about it. To be honest, I was really, really angry that I had to wear these things on both ears, because when I was growing up, there wasn't anybody that wore hearing aids. It was only old people, or I don't remember any children in my school wearing it, anyone in the contents of school wearing them. It just wasn't a thing at all. So I felt embarrassed and would just suffer without them, basically. So as time went on, then I started to really struggle with just everyday life. When you have ringing in your ears constantly, you can cope with it for a while, and then it becomes unbearable. That's all you hear. That's the soundtrack to your life. There's no getting out of it. You can't turn it off for a while, and after quite a while, it drives you insane. It absolutely drives you insane. You don't sleep. If you can't manage it, you can't sleep. If you're tired then from not sleeping, it's louder, it's worse. And there's people around me that I just never told. I go on about it. I didn't know what to do. I just started to feel so isolated from my friends and my family, and it was it was a very lonely time. So sorry, I didn't expect to get emotional about it, but for a really long time I just avoided people, avoided seeing friends, and avoided going into social situations because I couldn't cope. I would have anxiety attacks. And I struggled to find work because I didn't want to apply for jobs that involved speaking to the public or speaking on a phone. So I would just apply for jobs that weren't really what I wanted to do or what I was good at. I ended up doing a cleaning job in a hotel, and things just felt really, really bad. I went into a depression, and just couldn't really think of how I was going to get out of this, because it won't stop. That ringing will not stop, and you start to feel really worthless when you lose your ability to be yourself. You lose your ability to communicate with people. And when you're so used to being this social butterfly or this positive person, I was always classed as like a chirpy, happy Jess, never upset, or I don't know. It was hard then to feel myself change into somebody that I didn't know, and I didn't know what to do about it, because when you're in that place and that is still in your head, and you still feel like you're never going to get out of it. You don't know like what route to take. You can't kick yourself up the ass. You can't just snap out of it, because it's just constantly there. And that lasted for almost 2 years of just being in this horrible dark place and not really feeling like I'd ever get out of it. And I'm really, really lucky because I've got some wonderful people in my life, really good friends, really adventurous people. And it wasn't until this year that one of my friends came to me and said, look, we're going on a trip, we're going to go and do this massive challenge, massive adventure, where we would need to drive from Wales, where I live, my hometown, to Russia, and it would take about 8 weeks, and there was going to be 4 of us in this tiny little banger, and I just had to do something in my life. I had to do something to get out of my rut of this feeling sorry for myself, and trying to get people to understand when they're never going to understand unless they deal with the same thing. So I just said, yes, count me in, I'll do that. And I very almost didn't go. I was looking forward to it very much so, but then there would be this part of me that was saying, well, you can't do this. You've got nothing to offer. You can't, who are you going to speak to? You can't communicate with people, or you've got a rubbish job. You can't afford to do this. And I fought with myself for quite a long time. And luckily my friends are not the type that are just going to let me back out of something that I've agreed to like that. And they were like, no, you have to come. So we did. And to be honest, it was the most incredible thing I've ever done in my entire life. And it really just reminded me of who I am. It reminded me of what I do have to offer people. And I made some incredible friends with wonderful people from all over the world. And that's what it took. It took me to do something that big to pull me out of that dark place that I was with, that all stemmed from this hearing problem, this tinnitus that I didn't feel anyone understood. And it's so hard to have to explain to people constantly, even the people that care and that love you. They forget because you're talking to them like normal. You can't see tinnitus, it's not visible. They can't hear what you can hear. So how do you explain to them? You can't have every single conversation every single day saying my ears are ringing. It's just not possible. So it took me that huge trip to regain the confidence and start to see, actually, there might be a way out of this. There might be a way, and it's not going to be a medical cure. It's not going to be a magic pill. It's going to be my brain. It's going to be me that can to make myself better and then cope with this horrible ringing that I've got in my head. So I started doing like headspace things and pushing myself and challenging myself and believing that I can do whatever it is I want to do. I started writing about tinnitus and reaching out to others that have it, just to just acknowledge it. And I can't ignore it. It's not going to go away. I have to acknowledge it. And for example, now I came back from that trip without a job, and when I was applying for jobs and I went for an interview, I told them, I said, I have hearing problems and I have tinnitus. This job requires me to be on a phone. What will you do to support me? And they've been fantastic. I've gone in there feeling sorry for myself or not saying anything because they have to sort me. They have to accommodate people with any kind of impairments, and they did, and they've made sure that the phones that I use are loud enough for me to hear. They've made sure that I can sit in an area of the office where there's not too much going on around me, so that I can actually communicate with the patients that I communicate with, because I can do the job. The job is easy. I am a skilled person, and it's just this one thing that was holding me back before. And when you start to refuse to let it, and when you're not ashamed to say, I have this, you need to accommodate me, without arrogance, obviously, but people will understand. And those days that I have where it's louder, or those sleepless nights that I have, I don't try not to overthink them, and it might just be one day and then the next day I will be fine again, and it's going to be a constant battle to cope with it, but I think it's doable if you try and see. Everyone's individual, and if you try and do the things that will build up your confidence, will build up your resilience to what your mind is doing to you, then you will get somewhere. And if there's more awareness and people know more about it, then all the better, because once people start to understand, when the people around you, your friends, your family, your work colleagues start to understand, that's when things get much better. So I feel like I'm on the right path now. I still go and see bands, I still do that, but I'm not stupid. I don't stand next to the speaker. I wear hearing earplugs, and they are specialised for music, so that you still get the quality of the music without the damage or, making the tinnitus worse. So there's things out there, there is plenty out there, and it doesn't mean you have to stop living your life, and it doesn't mean you're worthless. And it took me a long time to realise that, and 2 years is too much. It's too long to feel that way, and I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. It's horrible. So yeah, it gets better. It does. It takes a lot of work, and it'll take a lot of work every single day. I mean, I'm talking now, it's quiet in my car, and all I can hear is that sound, that horrible sound. Even though I wear my hearing aids and they've got the white noise program, it doesn't get rid of it, it just helps it. So, when I look like I'm fine and I'm happy, just know I can still hear that ringing. When I'm asleep, I can still hear that ringing. When I'm watching a film, I can still hear that ringing. I don't know if it'll ever go away, but I don't feel like it's going to end my life if it doesn't. You need to just find the tools in yourself to cope with it. So yeah, I hope I haven't blabbed on too much, but it can be. I feel like I'm in a really positive place now, and I just hope that it lasts. And you never know, one day they could come up with that thing that stops it, and we can live life in peace.